Hello everyone. In this video we are going to discuss about the function modules, different types of function modules, their significance in SAP, how to debug a function module, how to call a function module, and a couple of other things. So I tried in fact 2 to 3 times in last couple of days, but due to internal system errors I couldn't continue with my recording, and then I was keeping busy as well. So at least in this video my target would be to finish the function module part so that I can take up this log objects and a few other things in the next video. I also got an email from one of my audience friend that she wants details on the AMS kind of projects, how to tackle an AMS project, what kind of tickets will be there, and then how to move forward. So today I'll finish this function module part, and in the next session, maybe tomorrow, I'll just discuss about AMS projects first, because that will take some 15 to 20 minutes. And then I'll discuss about log objects, that will take another 10 minutes maybe. And then job open, job submit, those function modules which are used to create a background job programmatically. So we'll just finish it tomorrow. So today let's focus on the function module part, because this is also very important thing. So once we are done with this, I think we are good to go with convergence. So we'll go with convergence after this. So in my last video I tried to explain few things on function modules, but then let's go ahead. We'll try to do it from scratch now. So the T code for function module is SE37, and if you remember in one of the programs when we were trying to create a ALV report, simple ALV output, we called the function module reuse ALV grid display. So basically, if you see, if you try to compare the concept of function module, it's very similar to the subroutines. We have already finished subroutines in one of the videos. So it's basically it's common piece of code, and then it will be responsible for some kind of functionality. It could be a very simple thing like subtracting two dates and giving you the difference, or it could be a very complex functionality like creating a sales order through your program rather than going through a transaction, or doing any complex calculation. But again, the concept would be that the function module should do something which is reusable. It should not uh, be created just for one time or anything. The concept itself here is that reusability of the function module, so that it can be called anywhere. It can take some input, it can give the designated output, the required output, and that's when it actually serves the purpose. Otherwise, if we are writing a function module just for one time, so better we can write a piece of code using a subroutine in our program itself. So until unless it's not reusable, the function module is, I would say, it's useless. So the other thing, SAP has provided hell lot of function modules, and uh, I would suggest that before you try to create a function module, just look for a function module available in the repository. So you can go to SE37 and you can try to give some kind of wildcards to search for your required function module. For example, let's say dates. If I do an F4 here, so it will give me all the function modules which will contain dates or date somewhere in the description or in the name. So by looking at the description, you can try to identify a particular function module. So yeah, so you can see that there are a lot of function modules, and then there is a description attached to it. So you can just go through it one by one, try to see if there is a suitable one for you. So this is one way of doing it, and then the other way, which most of the people will do, is go to google.com and then write SAP plus and then function module for this. So you'll get, that would be, I think, quicker way of searching a function module rather than coming to SE37. But then it's your personal choice, because today, I think in today's scenario, almost everything is available over Google. Everything is there in different websites, blogs, and everything. For that matter, you can consider this YouTube channel as well. A lot of things are available here also. So feel free to navigate around, feel free to explore the things, and then I'm sure that 90% of the problems can be solved by Google itself. So, okay, so now we'll just continue with our concept. So, reuse grid display. So, this is a function module which will take my internal table as an input. So if I go to this program which we created some time back, so you can see that if you go to SE37 and if you do an F8 here, it will execute this function module. You can provide, so whatever data you give here, you can just do a save and then it will be saved as a variant, just like we have in reports. For example, if you see a selection screen here, one second. Yeah, so you can see a selection screen here. So there is no difference between this and this. If you do something here and save, it will be saved in test data directory. If you give some value here and then save, it will be saved as a variant here. So but the thing which I wanted to show you is that when I'm going to display ALV, if you remember, we used to go to pattern and give the function module name there. It will call the function module here. But the concept of the function module is something which we try to understand in this session. So the concept of function module, you can correlate it with the subroutine. A kind of global subroutine can be called anywhere. And then if you hit on a display, it will provide more details. So I can go to the attributes. I can see the function group name. I can see the description of function group. I can see the short text. I can see the type of function module, normal, remote enabled, or an update function module. Who created this, when created this, which package. And then you can see it's released on 16 July 1999, which means in 1999 SAP released this function module for global use. So SAP is not bothered at all now to do any modification in this. It's perfectly tested. Anyway, it all depends on the system and support pack. We never know. I mean, updates keep on coming. And then most of the function modules will have some kind of documentation attached to it. So you can see the function module documentation here. If I click there, it will try to provide some kind of help document related to a function module. So we just wait for that documentation to appear. So it will give this kind of documentation. So when you create a function module, you can also attach this kind of documentation there, and then it will display here. But I have seen that in most of the cases, even the documentation is available, but it's not of much use. So if you know the concept, you can probably explore more and more about it. So having said that, every function module should be attached to a function group. So function group is basically the top level hierarchy, the something which is at the top. So a function group is basically a kind of header kind of thing, which will tell you about the whole and sole purpose of that group, and then what kind of function modules that group will contain. So just a kind of namespace, you can see. So and in function group, you'll see function modules, you'll see declarations, classes, whatever. I mean, whatever you write here, it will come here. Screens, includes. Includes are very similar to our top include and selection screen include and all those things. Just we have in our report these kind of includes. So anyway, we will be creating a function module. So we have three kind of function modules here. Normal function module. So name itself suggests that it's a normal function module, which means it can be called within the same system provided it's available in that system, which means if I want to call reuse ALB display in my system or in my client 800, in my development system, then it must be available there. So that's how it's a normal function module. Remote function module, I think there will be some kind of help also attached to this. If I do F1 here, so see, you can see that this kind of help SAP provides. So this is where we consultants come into picture. I think some frustrated ABAP consultants who actually developed this product, they didn't get time to update the documentation. So never mind, it's okay. So normal function module, it should be available within the same system to be called in your system. For example, you are trying to call it in your client 800, then this function module must be available in client 800. Otherwise, you cannot call it. And that makes sense also. I'm not telling anything out of the word. So you can see it was created in 1999, released, but then 2005 they applied some changes in this SAP only. So whenever you'll see standard changes, it will show SAP. Otherwise, it will show my name or some user's name, your name. Coming to remote enabled function module. So for example, you have this function module, reuse ALV grid display, available in my client 800. Now I want to call this function module in my client 600. Or let's say I have two different systems. I have a system which is called ECC, and then I have a system that is called EWM or maybe SCM. So I have a ECC system, I have a SCM system. SCM is basically supply chain management, and ECC is my normal R3 on which we are working currently. So if I want to call, so I have a scenario that I have some stock calculation being done in my SCM system. So that is my supply chain management system. For example, material availability or material stock availability in a particular plant or storage location. In fact, we have a T code CO09. So CO09, you can consider it as a tip for this video. We'll just wait for the transaction to open. So in SAP, we have a module called warehouse management, that is WM, which actually is a part of MM, materials management, or we can say it's part of logistics. Now, logistics itself comprises part of MM and then part of SD. So in different clients, they will have different kind of requirements. For example, there could be a client which needs just a P2P consultant, which means procure to payment consultant. Again, the other client might call it as a MM consultant. Then this client is calling it as a P2P consultant. So you should not be confused with that. There could be a scenario wherein someone is calling consultant as O2R consultant, that is order to remittance. So order to remittance is basically or order to cash, someone can say. So it's nothing but an SD consultant sales. So I mean, it all depends how you call them. But then having said that, it also limits their role in different ways. So there could be someone who deals with logistics only. I mean, just material in and out and then stock. So this is the availability overview. Here I need to provide a material plant, and then I can see that what is the available quantity of that material. So it's very difficult to give some input here, because normally in the projects there would be functional consultants who will be having some visibility on the plant. Now, being this one being an IDEF server, it's difficult for me to find out data, but still we'll give it a try. So, but what I wanted to explain here is that, okay, let's see, we'll choose a random material and choose a plant. doesn't exist in the plant. So these are things basically taken care of functional as table. Okay, we'll do one thing. We can go to RFC table and we can check that this material exists in which plant. Again, we may or may not get a data, but then I wanted you to see the transaction so that it will be helpful to you. So see that this material is extended in which plant. So MARC is for table of material and plant. MARD is the table for material, plant and storage location. This is strange, we don't have any entry for this material. So 1157 material is in 1000 and 3000. 1157. So here if you see, what it's actually doing is that it's going to different database tables and it's basically trying to see the consumption and then the available quantity, and it will then display the data in a particular format in front of us. So if we are talking about a normal ECC system, a normal R3 system in which warehouse management is basically within our ECC space, then it's okay, system will go in the backend and calculate a lot of things. But then if I have a separate SCM system which is altogether a different server, then if I run this transaction, for example, I have an APU server, separate APU system. So APU is basically forecasting system provided by SAP, in which you can do a lot of planning and then a lot of forecasting. So it consumes all the historical data and then it gives a projection based on your historical data that in coming, let's say Diwali sale, Holi sale, what kind of requirements you might have. So now if I want to check the availability of a material, so in that case it will go and connect to my APU system, because it will try to see that if any particular festival or any particular sale period is coming and then this material might be required in more quantity. So that way it will show you less stock available based on the historical data. But then what I wanted to explain here is that it's actually making a connection from ECC to SCM system, which means it's actually calling some kind of function module which actually sits in SCM system, but then we are calling it from ECC system, which will go into SCM, which will pull the data and show it back to ECC. So whatever output you can see here can be from ECC system itself, or it can be from a different system, maybe APU system. So first let's see the output. So first time it takes a lot of time, but it won't happen in the real time scenario. So that is called remote function module, which means I can call a remote function module from my system, but then it will actually be called in a different system, which means if I'm trying to do it from ECC system and then I'm calling into APU system, then APU system is my target system. So the requirement to call a remote enabled function module is that it must be available in the target system. So if we are calling reuse we get display in client 800 and it doesn't exist in client 800 obviously, because we are talking about a remote function module, then I need to tell this program that in which system it should go and call. So it will basically ask for the destination. So destination is nothing but my RFC destination, which means my remote function called destination. And then the destination will be created via trans. So you can see that there is zero stock. So, but then this kind of output you can see. This output can be through ECC system itself based on only WM module available, or it can be through APU system or SCM system based on the landscape. So we'll come out of this. CO09 is one of the important function module, one of the important T code, and then there is a function module also which does the same thing. BAPI material availability. So this BAPI will do the same thing which CO09 does. If I exclude this, if I provide the details of the material and plant, then it will do the same thing. I can just get the output here. So almost all important transaction will have some kind of function modules also, because you might want to do the same thing in your program, but then you cannot call the transaction there. So we talked about normal, we talked about remote enabled. Now the third one is basically an update module. Now update modules will be called in update tasks. When SAP tries to update a database, so I mean, and that is where my standard LUW concept also comes into picture. So we have this kind of scenario. We have like save data database size 0, then do the commit work. Commit work means finalize my saving. Data was saved successfully and finalized. Else roll back work. So this is the concept of standard LUW. LUW is nothing but logical unit of work. I have already explained in one of my initial videos. So what happens that if the data is saved successfully in the database, and system will just do a commit work there and finalize the saving. Otherwise, it will roll back the database in the original stage, which means no data was saved at all. So that is a standard LUW concept, and it's an interview question as well. So now when I'm talking about update modules, so a lot of things, I mean a lot of data, transactional data, which is resultant of a transaction, will be saved into database by using an update function module. So there are two things: start immediately, immediate start, no restart. So these are a part of our V1 update. V1 is basically high priority updates. These two are basically V2 update, which means low priority updates. So both the updates will happen, but then if that is called as a V1 update, then system will immediately process that function module. Otherwise, it will put that function module in queue, which means it will put your whatever data is resultant of the T code in a queue, and then as and when there is an update module free or update or process free, it will just take it into the consideration. So these are three different kind of function module. Most widely used is the normal one, could be standard, could be custom, and then remote one. But then update function module, I think it's very rarely it will come into picture. So now update module is basically, as I said, it's a part of your standard LUW, and then update task is something else. Update task is when you do some kind of save operation in the database. After that, update task will trigger, and then it will run once the data is saved in the database. Then it will do some post-processing activity after that. So that is an update task. So that also we'll see. Now we will try to create a normal function module, then we will convert that into remote, and we will convert that into update also. So I hope you are clear with the concept. I think in one of the videos, I remember in my last video, I already started creating a function module. So gfm underscore test we created. So what we can do, we'll go to AC37, or better, we'll create a new one. Let's say the best way of doing it is go to AC80, select a function group, because that is my top level hierarchy. We'll create with gfm test1 this time. Test function group, make it local. activate this. So what I created now, is nothing but this slvc underscore full screen. This is the function module, function group. So I did the same thing. I created the function group. Now if I do a double click here, so you should understand one thing, that whenever there is a function group, automatically SAP will add SAPL in front of that, and it will create a function pool by default. Function pool is nothing but very similar to my report. So it will have all the includes in that, and then every include will have some kind of coding. So for example, if this function group is going to contain 100 of function modules, so it's always suggestible that whatever internal tables or work areas or any other variable which you think that could be reusable to different function modules, we can declare in this global top. This is a global top provided by SAP itself by default. If you hit on change button, you can change it also. So better to do all the declaration in this global top. Activate, then you can do a create function module. I can keep the same name. So this one is a function module now. Now this function model, if you see, I go to attributes, as I explained earlier, it will have a couple of things here: function group description, function model description, who created it, when created it, and then it's not released yet. Not released yet means still some kind of changes can be made in this function module. Now, of course, I can set the status as released. I think there is an option here. But then, being a custom one, we will keep on making some changes in this, so we should not release it. Releasing means SAP will consider that there is no more changes. We can cancel the release also, it depends. Now it's a normal function module. Now if you go to import, you can give a parameter here, very similar to the parameters we used to assign in our report programs. You can assign a default value, you can make it optional. If you don't select this, then it will be a mandatory parameter. Pass value. So whenever there is a remote function call, then there must be a value passed there. So because the remote function module is available in a different system, so we should not pass any reference there. I mean, if you remember my subroutine tutorial, you will get more clarity on that. So remote function module must contain pass by value stuff. So if you are confused, you can just go through that video again. Export is nothing but the results which you can expect out of this function module. Again, it may or may not take some input, it may or may not give some output, but if you call that function module, it will do some kind of task, and then that's it. So changing is basically some kind of things which will be changed here, very similar to our subroutine concept. Again, optional pass by value is there. Tables, you can pass the internal tables here. So tables, I mean, if you want to change any table, if you want to append data in the tables, everything should come in the tables itself. Again, you can make it optional or non-optional. If you select this, means it's optional. Exception means if let's say you're calling a function module and internally there is some kind of operation which went into error. So you want to stop there itself, you want to come out of that function module. and then you can capture that exception in the program, and then later you can give some kind of message there. So we will see that as well. Source code is your place where you want to write your code. Now I'm giving a parameter input1 type I, default value let's say give 5, and then I'm not selecting this, so it means it's mandatory. Input2 type I, default value 4, this is also mandatory. Input3 type I, 5 4, let's say give 1, we'll make it optional. You can give a short text also. Not required, but still you can give, just to make the people understand that's what it's all about. And then I'm giving an export some type I. So here pass value, basically I want to get my output as a value in case of remote function model. Otherwise I can just use the concept call by reference also. I'm not changing anything here. I can assign a parameter, I can change the value of that parameter, very similar to subroutines. I'm not talking about any internal table here as of now. We'll see how to make it more complex. Exception, I can, let's say no underscore value, short text value, something given here just to make you understand. Trying to activate this. Going to source code, so whatever we declared here, it came automatically here. Now I'm writing that some, what is this here? Sum equal to INP1 plus INP2 INP3. I hope the system is not hanged again. Oh, somehow I clicked on this. So basically by clicking there, you can maintain the documentation of this function model. So for now we will just activate this. And if I do an F8 here, so you can see by default the inputs whatever we gave there, it's coming here. If I do an execute, it's giving the total 5, 4, 9 plus 1 equal to 10. Now I want to create a sample function module, a sample program in which we will call this function module. So this should be clear to you. Yeah, so it does not exist. We will create this. Now here I am calling my function module. So go to pattern, give this function module name here. So if you see this, since I didn't make any of the parameter as mandatory, this is optional, this is optional. Sorry, this is mandatory, this is mandatory, this is not mandatory. And then actually we are calling it by reference, we are not calling it by value. We can make one more change here. Well, let's call it by value. We'll just pass value here. We'll just activate this. Now I'll just uncomment everything. So to get the output, I have to declare the value here for data. In fact, it should go in the global top if I want to write the output. We'll put a breakpoint here so that you can understand that what is going on. Same thing, you can, if you run this function module, you can also do it in debugging mode. We have an option here, so we don't need to do a /h here. You can directly go into debugging mode. It will just open the code in front of you. You can do a double click. So you can see this way it works. Same thing we can do here. If I execute this, because there is no input, no output, we came to this FM, I went inside, I got the output. End of selection. So if I execute this now, let the breakpoint be there. So you'll get the output here. So this is a simple way of calling a function module. Now we can make it more complex. So if I go to my function module, I have given an exception here that no value. So because no, there are two things. First thing is, because this is an optional parameter, I can comment this one. If I comment this one, then also my program works fine. But now you might be curious that why it came as 10, because I have assigned a default value. For a change, we will remove the default values. We will provide the values in the program. So now if I call this function module, let's come in this breakpoint. You can see it's coming as blank. I can pass some value, you can pass the parameter also. So it's like, okay, let's do it in that way. Parameters p underscore 1 type I. Can get p underscore 1, p underscore 2. Since I have removed the default value, so you can see that by default it's this one is coming as mandatory, this one is coming as optional. Open the exceptions, do a pretty printer so that it looks better. Now if I go here, I can get 1, I can get 2 here. If I do output, so value is 3. Because now I have removed the default value, so whatever you pass, that will only be counted. Now I'm going to my source code, and then what I'm doing here is that if INP3 is initial, then range oh shit, no. So what I did, if this value is blank, then we will raise an exception that no value. So now if I do this, so keep some value, if I execute this here, so it will go in the function module. So even though we have the sum as 3, but since this field is blank, it will go and raise the exception. So the moment it will raise an exception, the value of size of RC will be equal to that exception which you have raised. So we have raised exception no value. So no value is at first number here. So that way size of RC becomes 1. And based on the value of size of RC, you can deal the messages in your program. So basically, why I didn't get any value of sum here is because I got an error in my function module, or I got an exception in my function module. So if size of RC is not equal to 0, so what I can do is, if I open this system, sometimes system makes its default message. You can see that some kind of default message system will give, but then this message is of no use to us. So we will again let it be commented. If size of RC is not initial, then we will write case size sub RC when I have already explained the case and case statement when 1 message P001 with please pass value in INP3. This is just an optional one, but then what is the significance? That is something I am trying to explain here. So based on the exception and based on the value of size of RC, what is this 3-digit error number? So now we'll see how our program runs. If I do an F6, it will skip this function module complete logic. The logic will be processed in the background, but we won't go inside. Do F5, it goes inside. Case size of RC when 1, it will give this message. Please pass value in input field. So this is how we handle exceptions in the function modules. It will do some standard code. So now you know how to handle the exception. Now you know how to write the code inside the function module. Now you know that how to provide an input and output. Okay, we can go in the program. Now, one more thing I would like you to understand here is, you can see that whatever I whatever I provided here as an importing parameter, it shows here as an exporting parameter. Whatever I provided as an exporting parameter shows here as an importing parameter. So the concept here is that, okay, when I run this normally via F8, then I am importing the value of this in the function module. But when I am calling this in my program, then what actually I am doing is I am exporting the program values to this function module, and then I am importing the function module value to my program. So the concept remains same, but it works other way around. In a normal case, I just go and import the values and export the value, but no one is consuming that. But here I export the program input in the function module and I import the function module output in my program. So don't get confused, it's very simple. So this is something about my normal function module. I can make it more complex by assigning a table here. Let's say IP. This is just pathetic here. IP underscore DNR type. This could be one option. And give like general material data, or what you can do, you can create an internal table. Let's say so this is something we are doing in the global top include. Now if I go back to my function module and if I go to tables, so this is one way of referring the structure directly, or what I can do, I can write type So here it actually refers to a dictionary structure. For example, like MARA, or if required, I can create a structure in SA11 and then I can just refer to that structure. If I want to call this, what we just declared, we have to call it in the source code. So, I mean, for example, if we have, let's say this one here, and if I go to my source code and then what I can do, I can comment this, I can select up to 10 rows, net, into table underscore something like this. So now if I call this function module again in my program, you'll see the tables here. You can see p underscore 1, p underscore 2, p underscore sum. Here also I need to declare one more internal table. Make sure that the declaration in the function module and in the program both are matching, otherwise it will throw it down. So it underscore madner type Mara. Now this is same as what we have in the function module, but if we have anything else, then there would be a type mismatch. So now if I go to my program, go to debugging, so you'll see that 10 materials are fetched here. So this way you can keep on making it more complex. You can deal with internal tables, you can deal with different variables, you can deal with input and output. So I don't know what's going on with this. So looks like there is a shutdown. So if I go to this standard function module, so we have some importing parameters here, we have some exporting parameters here. Don't have anything changing. We have an internal table here. We have an exception here. So this is the same thing which I was trying to do here. I mean in my function model. Just get some water and then continue. Okay, so we'll continue now. Now the other thing, I mean, when I created this, what I did, I just selected my here, but then when it goes to my internal table, there would be a mismatch between source and target. So what I did, I just selected the first two fields here, that is MA and DT, and then MET and R. So now if I see this function model, if I run it here, if I give some input, let's say 1, 2, so I get my 10 materials here. So likewise, if I call this function model in my program, I believe that was the reason it was throwing a dump in that program. So because there was an issue with the source and target structure mismatch. So if I run it again, if I execute this, so you can see that I have this here, I have 10 materials here, and then I can just utilize in whatever way I want. So this is how we create a function module, a normal function module. It will have some exporting and importing parameters, it will have exceptions, it will have a lot of logics. So why we have exceptions? Because in a function module we don't call messages normally, we will be reaching some exception like we reached here. Messages will be called in our normal programs as a day-to-day practice. So now we talk about a scenario that this function module lies in a different system. We'll make it remote enabled and execute this. So before doing this, we need to understand one more concept of remote destination. So normally in SAP, all the systems can be or by default will be connected via each other through a remote connection. So that will be called an RFC connection. In an RFC connection, we will be seeing different kind of destinations here. You can see that this is one destination. If I double click here, it will take me to the destination. So this is my RFC destination. So same way, we will be having a destination assigned to my system in which the remote function module exists. So if I talk about a scenario that this function module exists in this destination, then everything remains same. Everything remains same, except what we will do. So call function this destination this. So this is how we will provide the destination name. For calling a remote function model. What is this others? Okay, let me just check the syntax. So this is the concept of RFC destination. You can click on remote logon and then via this you can just directly log on to that system. It will have the IP address of that system and few other details. So here obviously I'll get an error because that system is not available in my laptop. So call function module destination name. I don't understand what is this. Argument others, what is this? Yeah, okay. So why this is coming? Because so why this is coming, because whatever exceptions on all will be raised, it will be raised in that system, that is my target system, so it's of no use. So that is the reason it's asking me not to check these things here. So the basic or the ground rule is that in case of a remote function, we will be calling it from the destination with my importing and exporting parameter. So it will go and hit that particular system provided there is a connectivity already existing between these two systems. It will go there with these inputs and it will fetch the output, that is my v underscore sum or it underscore matn or whatever it is. So this is how a remote function works in a normal scenario. Now some of the things which we will be discussing is that we can do something like starting new task, one like this. Okay. So when we call a function module with the extension starting new task, so you can see that what's going to happen now. So I did an F5 there. So you can see that now I have two debugging sessions opened here. So this is my first session, and then internet also called the second session, in which it actually went inside the function module. If I do an F5 now, it will just do the processing and I'll come back to my original session. So by doing this, what I can do, so this is how we call a function module in a new task. Now the purpose of doing this is, in fact I will be taking a session on parallel processing tomorrow. I'll explain the concept of that tomorrow or whenever I'll get time. So for now you just remember the concept of starting new task and how to receive the results we will see in parallel processing. Similarly, we have another option in background task. So it's basically very similar to calling this function module in a background mode or just like a job mode. So this way, what happens? I cannot get the results from this function module, so it will go in the background, it will do something and it will be done, but then I don't know whether it actually happened properly or not. So in starting new task, I have to use extension like receive results, which I'll explain in parallel processing. But in background task, we cannot receive the results from the function module. So I'm commenting this, so you know that we have some other way of calling this function module. There is another way of calling this function module would be in update task. So now if I run this, go to setting, system debugging, update debugging. If I enable this, let's say go here, I do an F6. I executed this, I did F8. So basically, now this function module will be called in the update task in the background, which means if there is an update process free, this function module will go and it will be assigned to that update function module, update task or update process. Basically, we'll go to a transaction SM50. SM50 will tell me that how many. So I have only one update process. I have one spool process. I have some 5-6 background process, one enqueue, one more update here, and then 5 dialog processes, 6 dialog input. So, but then to make that function module trigger in update task, I need to do some kind of database update. Then only this will be triggered. So I'll show you that how the function module is called in update task and how to debug a function module in update task. But then how to debug a function module in, okay, so let's say, So let's say I have this function module as a remote function module. And this function module is called from a non-SAP system. So okay, looks like this session is going a little long. Okay, we will try to wind it up in next 10 minutes. I'm almost nearing towards today's session. So okay, now I will be talking about a scenario before I go ahead. I'm going to this website. I'm going to Facebook for a moment. People, okay. So I'm just logging out from here. Now I wanted to explain something here. So in the front end we have this web page, but then what do you expect we have in the back end? So in general, Facebook is using Oracle database. So Oracle database, everything will be updated. Users data, what kind of pictures we are uploading, everything will be lying in the Oracle database. So in the front end, or even for that matter, user details also, whether the user is authorized or not. So in the front end, we have this web page. We enter our email ID or the username or the phone number and the password. So in the back end, what system does? System will take these details and system will actually call a remote function module or a remote function call with these input parameters here. It will go to the source code. It will do a select query to the user's database table, and it will identify whether that username and password is matching with the data in the database. If yes, then it will just give a success message and it will let us go through. But if no, then it will throw an exception here like we raised here, and then it will give an error. For example, if I write something, let's say if I do a login, so what it does, it will call that remote function call in the backend. It will get an error like this. It will get an exception. Based on that, it will generate an error like this, which will be projected on the web page or in the front end, and then it will give this screen. So both the things are programmed actually. So it's basically in coordination with both the things. So suppose Facebook did its, that web page did its function call to your RFC. Now let's say we have a problem in our dev system. So how to debug this RFC? So one thing we can do is we can do an endless loop here. So do and do. So this is how I used to debug when I was a developer. We will write if 1 equal to 1. So we are writing some fuzzy logic. So if I do like this, then this my function module will always be in an endless loop when it's being called from any of the system, remote system, within SAP, outside SAP, through web page, through any Java, .NET, VB, any kind of system. So if I execute this now, if I give some entries here, 1, 3, and if I execute this, so whenever there is an external call from another system to this system, it will always be stuck here. But then because that call happens in the backend, so right now it's happening in the front end, so we are able to see this. But then if that call happens in the backend, then what you need to do, obviously it will happen in the backend only. So whenever you want to debug an RFC, you go to SM50, you'll see your session there like this, and you can program debugging. You can use this option, debug program, yes, and by doing this it will take you in the debugging mode. Now here it's already open in debugging mode, so, but then that time it will open in the same way, so you can debug it from there. That is one option. Second, if you know that you want to debug it from a certain point, you know that lot of logic is there, and then it will take some time to reach to that particular place from where you want to start your debugging. So what you need to do, you need to keep on monitoring SM50 as and when in that our process comes here. Just select this and go to program debugging. So this is one of the ways of debugging an RFC function module. The other way is obviously you just call that RFC with all the parameters in your system as a normal function module. So you can see it's an endless loop, it will keep on. So same way, if you debug it by SM50, it will stuck here. You come here, debugger, and go to statement. That way you can come out of this endless loop and you can execute this function module. You can debug it further. So this is how we debug a remote function module. For update function module, I'll be giving a demo tomorrow in my next video. So there I'll explain that how to debug an update function module or an update task. In fact, update task, not an update function module, because update function module we won't be debugging. So I think today's session will be of some benefit to you, and then I'll come back again tomorrow. So while we're talking about update task, I'll also be discussing about the output types in SAP related to orders, delivery, or there it's often called an update task. So that would be some real-time example. So I will just close this session for today. I think it's more than an hour, and then it will be difficult for you also to digest. So we'll catch you again. So thank you. Thanks for your time.